Good afternoon, everyone. This is Ed Scott, the CEO of Electrify, and on behalf of CDO Magazine and its 350,000 readers in over 175 countries globally, we are very, very excited to welcome Tracy Daniels. Tracy, it's great to have you. Welcome.
Thank you. A pleasure to be here with you today, Ed.
I think our viewers and listeners are going to be incredibly interested in understanding where you've seen some success, Tracy, and some things that you can point to personally where you've driven some success and been recognized. And I think this is a great way for to educate the audience a bit.
Yeah, so I think there's been some great work that's been done looking at, and again, trying to not to give up too much, right, in terms of the work that we're doing, but looking at multi-channel and pulling together information that we perhaps haven't stitched together before as a way of getting to know the clients, the customers, and offering them better products and services. I think there's some work that the teams are currently doing around refining the next best offer using some AI and machine learning techniques that are more surgical and personal, like we talked about a little bit earlier, for the benefit ultimately of our customers and client. And then I think there's some really neat work that the teams are looking around. Like, one of the things that's very important to Truist is to make sure that we really live our purpose. And so there is some work that we are doing that looks at how do you really quantify that and make it a little bit more consistent. So it's not something we're looking to like make more money on or like reduce handle time, but it's really how do we really speak to what's important for our customers and client, and how do we get to know that and act on that better. So those are some interesting projects that I think the teams are working on.
Well, I think a couple of observations. In a challenging economic environment, we don't know which way it's going to go, but it's certainly choppy, out there across the nation and across the world. I think fair to say that most companies that I'm speaking with are trying to get more out of their existing customers, engage more with their existing customers, make sure they retain those existing customers. And, the technologies that we've been referring to today, whether it's LLMs or broadly speaking, or the NLP is a little bit more detailed, and the computer vision, machine learning, all of that, some of these things can particularly on the sentiment side, drive almost a real-time NPS. And that has the ability, for those who are listening or watching this, that has the ability to reshape the notion of NPS. And so I hope you're listening. These these technologies are very, very powerful. Tracy, you dropped a few tidbits there for those. You may want to go back and rewind that and listen. But where are we going with these technologies, Tracy, across the financial organizations? What are we gonna see in 4 or 5 years?
I mean, that's the holy grail question. I don't know, Ed. I feel like I have to ask you and your company. Yeah, I mean, I think so. I don't know what it is. I think how it moves is going to be kind of interesting, right? Like, you think about the speed from GPT-3 to 4 and the pace at which these technologies are getting better. I'm actually also kind of interested in if more people can get in the game, meaning to really productize, right, these technologies.
Love it.
I think the differentiator is not just like Tracy and her data team. It's the line of business. It's the creative. It's the UX. So it's all sort of getting together and putting their heads together around what is a new product, a new service, a new experience look like. So I think the convergence of different skills on these technologies is going to be the game changer in terms of what we see in 3, 4, 5 years.
15 years ago, if you were 15, 20 years ago, if you were traveling from Atlanta or New York to London or, Paris or Asia, and you had a cell phone, and you would care about whether it was CDMA or some of the other GSM or some of the other mobile fabric technologies, communications technologies. Today, you don't. And it's an interesting thought. Today, you and I can pick up our Android or our Apple phone, and the Uber works, and we can get a restaurant, and we can get a plane, and on and on and on with great ease. I actually think that is where we are headed with these technologies. And I don't know that I quite have a word for it yet, but I think that you're right. The power will be down with those business unit leaders or whomever. I've been telling people, please learn prompt engineering as quickly as you can. There's a few free classes on there if you're not doing that. I'm telling my daughters that, by the way. And you absolutely need to do it. But that's where the real power is going to be in terms of, that's the ultimate in terms of people at the business unit level really playing with these technologies and becoming their own creators.
That's right. The funny story I share with folks is my 74-year-old mother. I have taught her to use ChatGPT. We call it Charlie. So I say, well, here's how you ask Charlie questions to get the thing that you're trying to do. And my 74-year-old mother loves to use Charlie to create content about wellness. Who knows? She could become the next viral content creator in vegan goodness, right? And turmeric shots.
I'll be watching that web channel for sure. One of the things I want to cover is I want to pivot a little bit. How do we get these technologies, into the schools, into the communities, and getting people familiar about these things? Because I think, I started my career, Tracy, many years ago, and saw the web with Akamai, saw the outsourcing movement, and so on and so forth, and now the machine learning. Right. The NLP and the computer vision, and the LLM. And this has the feel of being as big or bigger than some or all those moments. Right. Mm-hmm. And it's one of the things that I'm trying to communicate to, my daughters, and to pay attention to that and listen to it. This also has the feel that a lot of people could be left behind. And how do we make sure that we as a country and communities and states and towns and so forth, how do we make sure that people are versed in these so they're going to have the best job opportunities, going forward? What are some of your thoughts on that? These are things I think about all the time.
Totally. So all of that, right? Which is, again, back to this idea that we have to be very intentional as industry around upskilling and teaching folks to, leverage the technology, teaching folks and listening to folks about how we might do jobs differently so that we're really leveraging their technologies. And then I think you use it, right? I really love, we were in a senior leader meeting, and we were talking about the fact that we weren't going to allow access to it. And I love the question that one of our leaders asked, which was, but how do we get experience? Because it would seem that we were like, absolutely, here are the things that we're doing to gain experience. But I think you have to introduce it into the school and into the different places. When it actually came out, I actually wrote my daughter, who's in middle school, I wrote her middle school English teacher. And I said, if you're not playing with this technology, here's a couple of things. And I sent like a link to a write-up. But I also sent a video that was done by another educator who talked about how she was teaching her students to leverage it in the classroom, right? So not afraid that they would plagiarize, but how do I use it to teach them to get more out of the content that we're learning in class? And I think if we can make it sort of more of an everyday thing, it's not a scary thing. And again, I think there's almost no more natural prompt engineer than a 14-year-old to learn how to use the technology and get them interested in STEM. And again, I think this is to your point. I think I saw something that was funny about how MySpace turned us all into like programmers, but we didn't really understand it, right? They understand syntax. They sure do on Roblox. So if you give them a product that allows them to interact and get interested, I think you also get a lot more folks interested in the field. The last thing that I sort of worry about or think about in this realm as well is how do we make sure that there aren't unintended consequences of people being impacted, right, by these technologies? Because it's being trained on a lot of historical data that we know have historical problems, right? So how do we just hit that head on? Either you're looking for it, you're screening for it, you're asking questions, right, that look for it. I was sharing with folks, I was sort of comparing the itinerary that ChatGPT could create for me versus one that I asked of a travel agent. And one of the things I very intentionally did is that if I'm going to, in this case, it was Africa, I wanted a list of Black African owned places as well. And the list that I got back was different. I had to intentionally ask for something that I was looking for, maybe differently. So I think that intentionality about thinking about biases or problems in the data and upfront thinking through how you manage that, incorporate offsets is important for us in this field as well.
And I think, getting all the data into these foundational models is really vital. But Tracy brings up a really good point, which is, the output of this is still going to have to be monitored. There's simply no question. We don't have time to get into the notion of hallucinations and all all these other things, but we will, is my guess, come to rely on this. And so biases and other related critical topics will have to be focused on to make sure that the veracity and the quality that we all look for is determined. Well, I want to say to our audience around the world listening, what a treat it has been to chat with Tracy Daniels today. Tracy, where can people find you on social media if you're allowed to do that? Can they find you and follow you and track
LinkedIn,
you?
only on LinkedIn. Thank you very much.
Very good, very very smart answer. Well, I think all of us would be well served by visiting Tracy's LinkedIn page from time to time to see what pearls of wisdom she drops up on there for all of us to take advantage of. On behalf of CDO and the CDO magazine and all of the listeners around the world, Tracy Daniels, thank you so much for your time today.
It has been a pleasure and an honor. Thank you so much, Ed.